Hello, online arts community. Welcome to Fleetwood-Jourdain Theater's Stay Creative, in collaboration with Piven Theater Workshop, a journey through the history of Black theater, a series with me, Professor Bria Walker. Today, we're going to talk about the magnificent playwright, poet, fiction writer, dancer, educator, and activist Ntozake Shange and her groundbreaking choreo poem for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Ms. Shange was born Paulette Linda Williams in Trenton, New Jersey in 1948 and passed away on October 27, 2018 at the age of 70. Her father was a surgeon and her mother was a psychiatric social worker. Both were politically active members of their community and associated with jazz greats such as Josephine Baker, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, and Charlie Parker. Her family moved to St. Louis in 1953. She grew up reading English, French, and Spanish, and she was one of the first Black students to integrate one of the all-white schools in St. Louis. She endured constant attacks of racism during this time. She attended Barnard College in New York City in the late 1960s. According to the APB speakers, while at Barnard, she came under the influence of a wide variety of radical movements, including the anti-war Vietnam protests, feminism, the Black arts and Black liberation movements, the Puerto Rican liberation movement, and the 60s sexual revolution. She later became a voice for all of these social justice movements. But above all, she spoke for and in fact embodied the ongoing struggle of Black women for equality, dignity, and respect for their enormous contribution to human culture, end quote. She cited that her college years were difficult. She married and separated from her first husband, a law student, during her first year of college and attempted suicide multiple times. According to Ms. Shange's friend and fellow Barnard classmate Thulani Davis, Shange also began to find her voice as a poet during these years and found encouragement from members of the revolutionary spoken word group, The Last Poets. It was also during this time that she began to pen the poems that would soon be the beginnings of For Colored Girls. While in New York City, she became acquainted with the plight of impoverished Black women. The anger she felt as a result of the victimization she witnessed inspired the Bo Willie Brown story that the lady in red tells at the end of the show. She wrote it as she heard a neighbor being beaten by their husband while the husband laughed as he did it. In 1971, while attending graduate school at USC Los Angeles, she began to come to terms with her own sense of self. She also said she wanted to disassociate herself from the history of a culture that championed slavery. So she decided to change her name to Ntozake Shange. Ntozake is Zulu for she who comes with her own things, and Shange means one who walks like a lion. During her time in graduate school in California, Shange began to associate with poets, teachers, and performers, and both Black and white feminist writers. All of these folks would help nurture her talents. Lesbian poet Judy Grant's 1973 book of poetry entitled The Common Women would provide the model for Shange's For Colored Girls. One night, while driving home and feeling especially depressed, Shange saw a double rainbow over the city of Oakland, California. It was in that moment she realized that women have a right to survive. For Colored Girls started in collaboration with her friend and choreographer Paula Moss and Ovia Marta. This collaboration inspired and resulted in 20 poems that were performed in bars throughout the San Francisco area. The piece consisted of 20 choreo poems, a term Ms. Shange created. They were poems that integrated poetry, song, movement, dance, improvisation, and gesture, and explored different facets of Black female identity. In a 1976 New York Times interview, Shange said that colored women, quote, have as much right and as much purpose for being here as air and mountains do, end quote. For her, the rainbow is, quote, the possibility to start all over again with the power and beauty of ourselves, end quote. Miss Shange graduated and received her master's degree, and 2 years later moved back to New York City, joined by her friend Paula Moss. The production of the work at venues including the Nuyorican Poets Cafe and the Lower East Side drew the attention of director and producer Woody King Jr. King would go on to help them polish the pieces into a play. The piece would run off Broadway for 7 months and on Broadway for 2 years. It received an Obie Award and a Tony Award nomination for Best Play. For the first 3 weeks on Broadway, it featured Miss Shange as the Lady in Orange. For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough would be the second play on Broadway written by an African-American woman. The first was A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. In an article by Mark Grabowski for Sapia magazine, Miss Shange stated in regards to her show that, quote, "If you see only one color, it's not beautiful. If you see them all, it is. A colored girl, by my definition, is a girl of many colors, but she can only see her overall beauty if she can see all the colors of herself. To do that, she has to look deep inside her, and when she looks inside herself, she will find love and beauty," end quote. Writer Alice H.G. Phillips described Shange's writing style in the Times Literary Supplement as this, quote, "She lets go with verbal runs and trills, mixes in syncopations, spins out evocative hanging phrases, variations on themes and refrains. Rarely does she come to a full stop, relying instead on line breaks, extra space bringing up a line, and or oblique strokes. In her poetry, Shange does take many liberties with the conventions of written English, using non-standard spellings and punctuation. Explaining her lowercase letters, slashes, and spelling, Shange has said that poems where all the first letters are capitalized bore her. Also, I like the idea that letters dance. I need some visual stimulation so that reading becomes not just a passive act and more than an intellectual activity, but demands rigorous participation. The spellings, she said, reflect language as I hear it. The structure is connected to the music I hear beneath the words," end quote. The choreo poem inspired many artists after her, including the controversial film production by Tyler Perry, for which Miss Shange was extremely critical of. The play and its many interpretations continue to be staged all over the world. In Fleetwood-Jourdain Theater's 2013 production of For Colored Girls, director Tim Rose expanded on the play's themes by adding internationally renowned jazz bass player Marlene Rosenberg to compose music for the play. Each character had their own originally composed song, and the overall play had its own original composed theme composition. Miss Rosenberg played live on stage during each performance. Miss Shange would go on to teach at many universities, receive various awards and honors, and create and write more and more new pieces of literature, from plays such as Spell Number 7 to poetry, essays, children's books, and novels such as Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo, and Lillian. Fleetwood-Jourdain Theater will be producing Spell Number 7 this summer as part of its summertime season. Miss Shange suffered a series of strokes in 2004 and experienced declining health ever since. In October of 2018, Miss Shange passed away in her sleep. Her daughter, Savannah, had this to say about her mother. She spoke for and in fact embodied the ongoing struggle of Black women and girls to live with dignity and respect in the context of systemic racism, sexism, and oppression. End quote. Miss Shange often said that she sought to build a legacy in which Black culture was memorialized and preserved. I think it's safe to say, Miss Shange, you accomplished your goal. We here at Fleetwood-Jourdain Theater are forever thankful for your words, for your ideas, for your spirit, and for helping us find God in ourselves. Tune in Monday as we turn another page in the history of Black theater.